Feel your feelings, they say. We've all heard it. I've said it. It's 2025, mindfulness is almost mainstream by now, and we all know that it's important to pause and feel our feelings. We know it's important to be aware of what we're feeling. But why does it keep being so hard? It's easy to feel your feelings when you're experiencing all of the positive emotions. It's easy to feel your feelings when you're happy about something, when you're excited, when you're looking forward to something, when you accomplished something and you're proud of yourself. It's easy to feel your feelings when you're feeling confident about yourself. It's easy to feel your feelings when everything in your life is going according to plan. It's easy to feel your feelings when you checked everything from your to-do list, when everything that you consider important in life, you are acing. It's easy to feel your feelings when everything is going well. But what about when it's not going so great? What about those moments in which you're not so excited? What about those moments in which you feel that you have failed? Maybe you're feeling that you are failing yourself or you're failing someone else. What about those moments in which you feel disappointed about yourself, about your performance, about how far you are in the journey towards a goal that you're aiming for? What about those moments in which you feel sad? What about those moments in which you feel lonely? What about those moments in which you feel lost or misunderstood? And what about those moments in which you feel shame? And this is the feeling where I want to park today. And I want us to talk about shame, and I want us to reflect about shame because I have a lot of experience in this feeling. And you might be wondering, what are you even ashamed of? Everything looks normal in your life. But believe it or not, shame is one of the most recurrent feelings in my life. And it's a feeling that I have worked on internally, and it's a feeling that is not always there, but every time that I catch myself being a little bit more introspective, every time that I catch myself not wanting to be social or wanting to be a little bit more by myself, what I notice in me is that shame has come back. And it's usually when I deep dive into that feeling of shame within me and I work around it and I try to discover what is it that it's trying to tell me or what unconscious patterns I am getting lost into again. It's usually when I do that I rediscover that again, it was shame. And that's when I can actually bring myself out of it. And so today I want to walk you through the process that I go through every time that I find myself feeling shame. Because maybe you're also feeling a little bit ashamed. And maybe you haven't even realized that what you're feeling is actually ashamed of yourself, ashamed about something in your life, you're ashamed about something that you're doing. And I hope that these words will be able to help you navigate those feelings of shame and feel them, even though they are uncomfortable, understand them, understand where this feeling is coming from, and come out the other side feeling a little bit less shame. Because even though I do believe that we do need to feel our feelings and we need to feel the uncomfortable emotions, we are not meant to stay there forever. My understanding is that we are meant to navigate our feelings and emotions so that we can understand what they're trying to tell us and then move out of them. We are meant to navigate all sorts of different feelings in our life, but we're not meant to stay stuck in the ground, feeling like shit all the time. So if you're feeling a little bit down, or if shame is something that you can also notice might be a little bit recurrent in your life, stay with me because we're gonna dive right into it. So before I dive into shame, I actually just want to start elaborating around the idea of perspective and our perspective of ourselves. And eventually we will land into the shame aspect of it. But it's important for me to kind of like go back into the basics of our inner world. And it just makes sense to start talking about perspective. So, how we perceive ourselves is not the same thing as what we are. And what we are is not even a thing. There are some things that we are, there are some facts out there. It is true that we were born on a certain day, in a certain place, we have a certain nationality. Like, there are facts, but so much, the majority of what we are is very subjective. And so what's important is not necessarily that we change who we are, but that we change our perception of ourselves. And in changing our perception of ourselves and our perception of who we can become, we can bring ourselves to a place where we can motivate ourselves to do the things that we need to do in order to go from the person that we think we are right now to the person that we want to be tomorrow. So our perception of ourselves is the only thing that I would say matters for the purpose of understanding shame later on. And so when we perceive ourselves, usually what we are doing is we are putting together a bunch of beliefs inside our belief system, and we are judging ourselves based on those. We have a bunch of beliefs internally that are usually a compilation of beliefs of the people around us. And sometimes that belief system can be really, really noisy. And if we are not intentional about our belief system, it just becomes whatever. And it can lead us to very dark places where we end up feeling shame or we end up feeling down about ourselves, and we're not even sure why. Because we have a bunch of beliefs inside ourselves fighting against each other and trying to make up this idea of ourselves. And all that we feel is that we are not good enough. And so to give you an example of this, it could be that you're not super aware of what your belief system looks like. And it could be that what you're doing is just simply stealing beliefs from the people around you. So imagine that one day you're hanging out with a certain group of people and they believe certain things about what it's like to be a cool person or a kind person or a smart person, a person that you want to be. They have a version of what that person looks like. And so you start evaluating yourself based on what they believe a cool person, a smart person, a kind person, a beautiful person is. And so it could be that the day before you met with those people, you were feeling perfectly fine about yourself. You were running based on some belief system that you're not sure what that belief system was, but you were running based on some beliefs that weren't judging you. But all of a sudden you met up with these people and they started talking about this person or that person, or maybe they even just started judging themselves. They may not have even said anything about you, but you start to absorb in your own belief system that a cool person, a smart person, a kind person, a whatever person is a person that does A, B, and C, is a person that has A, B, and C. And then you start comparing that definition of this person to what you are. And then you realize that you are not living up to that standard. And all of a sudden, you feel shame. Because you feel that you're not good enough. You feel that your life is not a representation of this person that you so much would like to be. But why didn't you feel that the day before? Because the day before you didn't know anything about this definition of this person. You were maybe hanging out with other people, or you were maybe focusing on other things in your life. But all of a sudden, all that you can think about is that you should be doing these things. You should be looking this way. You should be good at these other things. And you're not. You're not that person. And all of a sudden you just feel so ashamed of yourself. And it sounds so silly. And this thought process happens so fast that you might not even realize that this is what's happening. So now going back to the concept of perspective. Why is perspective important? Because all that we're doing here is changing from one perspective to the other. Because what you're doing here is just judging yourself based on someone else's perspective on what it's like to be a certain kind of person. That is not true. That is just their perspective. And it could be that the next day you hang out with other people and their perspective of a cool, smart, kind, beautiful person is someone else, someone that does other things, someone that has other things. And then when you see yourself through their perspective of this person, then you feel good about yourself. And it's all a matter of perspective. And perspective is tied to these beliefs that are living within our belief system. The reality is that everybody has a different belief system. And it's not realistic that you will be able to find a version of yourself that you will be able to love and feel proud of and not feel ashamed of based on everyone else's belief systems. Majority of people don't even know that they have a belief system. They don't even know what's inside of that belief system. So it's really not fair for us to be judging ourselves through the eyes of other people. The harsh reality is that people do judge you. And they don't necessarily judge you from a bad place, but they do judge you. And the truth is that they are judging you in the same way in which they're judging themselves. Oftentimes, we feel bad about ourselves when someone else is judging not even us, but when that person is judging themselves. Because you see someone else being hard on themselves because they don't have A, B, or C, or they don't do A, B, and C. And then in that moment, you're like, shit, I'm also not like that. I also don't have those things. And maybe you were perfectly fine before having that conversation with that person. And all of a sudden you saw them judging themselves through their own pair of eyes, through their own perspective, through their own lens. And then you started judging yourself as well through their eyes. And people may not always tell you, but they are judging you. And that is what we feel energetically. Because people don't have to tell you that they believe that you are not good enough because of A, B, and C. They don't have to tell you that directly to yourself for you to know that they think that about yourself when you see them judging themselves in that way, or when you see them judging other people in that way. And I do believe that that inner thought that we have that is like, damn, if this person is judging themselves in this way, or if they think this way about themselves, I wonder what they think about me. And I wish I could tell you that, yeah, well, they probably don't think about you that often. You're not the most important thing in their lives. Yeah, and that's probably true. Like, you're not other people's center of attention. But there is a chance that they do have that thought about you, even if it's super unimportant in their life. That is true. And the problem is not that they think that, but the problem is that you perceive that they have that thought, and then you make that perception yours, and you start judging yourself. And this is where we have a problem, because ultimately everything that is happening around us, it's only important for us and for our feelings because we take in all of that information and we start judging ourselves because of that. It's not about someone else judging you. It's about you taking that to heart because you believe that about yourself as well. And sometimes it's really about questioning, why does it bother you so much that someone else thinks something? Why does that bother you so much? And why you're trying so hard to convince others that you are not A, B, or C, or that you are this and that? Why are you trying so hard to convince them? Could it be that you're trying so hard to convince them because you believe that by convincing them, that's the only way in which you can convince yourself? Could it be that the only reason why you're focusing so much on convincing other people about certain things is that you don't believe those things about yourself? And what if I told you that you don't have to convince them in order to convince yourself? What if I told you that all you have to do is to convince yourself, and that is where the hard work actually needs to be put in? And so going back into perspective, the one thing that we have to prioritize in our lives is to be able to control our perception of ourselves. How do we perceive ourselves? What does our belief system look like? Why are we being so hard on ourselves? Where is all of that judgment coming from? And this is a true act of inner work and reflection, to actually sit down and pay attention at all of those beliefs that we have inside ourselves, and to allow ourselves to question those beliefs and to ask ourselves, where the heck is that coming from? And do I actually believe that? The true inner work is about asking ourselves, is this belief serving me? Is this belief actually helping me? Is this belief helping me rise? Or is this belief actually just pushing me further down and not really doing anything for me? And this is how we come back to shame. What is shame doing for you? Once you notice where that shame is coming from, once you notice that that shame is coming from a belief that you basically almost inherited from someone else without even realizing that you were doing that, once you notice that that shame is coming from there, I want you to ask yourself, is that belief actually serving me? It's not even about the belief being true or not. It's really not about that, because it's all subjective. And you can go down that rabbit hole and, spend a million years trying to figure out if that is true or not. But it's more about realizing if that belief is serving you or not. And sometimes we think that a belief is serving us because it's helping us realize something that we feel we should change about ourselves. But what I want to ask you as well is that belief actually helping you address that thing about yourself that you want to change? Or is it just actually making you feel ashamed of yourself? Because if the belief is just making you feel ashamed about yourself, that belief is not serving you. But if the belief is propelling you to actually change something about yourself, to actually get up and do something, then that belief is helping you. But very, very little times we can do something for ourselves from a place of shame. We need to learn to be okay with ourselves, to love ourselves, to show ourselves respect, love, and appreciation before we can gather the energy to actually take a step to change something about ourselves. Because when you are lost in an overwhelming sense of shame, you don't want to do anything. You just feel like shit about yourself. You're like, what is even the point? And it makes more sense for you to actually kind of deep dive into that feeling and feel like actual shit for a few minutes, hours, or even days, until you realize, dude, what you're feeling is shame. And you're feeling shame because you are judging yourself based on this set of beliefs. And that is actually not taking you anywhere. So let's try to choose now a different set of beliefs that are empowering, so that we can get ourselves off the couch and do something. So with this, my invitation for you today is to pay attention to what is it that you're feeling, to actually notice where those feelings are coming from which beliefs they're coming from. And if you spot in you a feeling of shame, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that you don't deserve to feel ashamed about yourself. I want you to know that this is probably some unconscious, noisy stuff that's going on inside your head. And you're gonna feel so much better when you actually sit down for a little bit and try to get to the bottom of it and realize where that feeling is coming from. Nothing is objective when it comes to feelings. Even when it comes to beliefs, nothing is objective. Everything is subjective. Everything is coming from other people's perceptions of reality. And it is up to us to choose what we want our perception of ourselves to be. How do you want to perceive yourself? How do you want to perceive this situation? Through which lens do you want to analyze what's going on right now? And do you want to analyze it through a lens that is empowering, that is propelling you to actually, get up and live life and do something? Or do you want to analyze it through a lens that is pushing you downwards, that is making you feel ashamed, that is not really motivating you to do anything? I bet it's the first one. So today, my invitation for you is to pick that first one. It's all a matter of perspective.